Yeah. So anyway, time to grade the Big Sky. Welcome back, guys, to Tubs of the Club, presented by Snake River Stampede Canadian Whisky. This is the Big Sky Podcast Network Power Rankings. In theory, we don't really talk power rankings. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, and we're joined by friend of the pod, Colby Peterson, wrote for FCS Nation Radio. He's the guy at Weber State Weekly as well. Colby, how's it going?
Good, man. Mercifully, the season is over.
Well, we'll get to it for Weber. You've at least got a fun off season to look forward to for Hopefully. The next while. Yeah, I see that jaded response. But anyway, we're grading the Big Sky Conference. This is one of my favorite episodes to do. I never miss the midterms. And I didn't get to record the Sunday show quite as much as I usually get to, guys. Full disclosure, my school schedule just beat the shit out of me second half of the year. So we make it work when we can make it work. But today is one of those days, and the grading is simple. Colby and I just do whatever we want for grades. We usually don't give much. Exactly. We usually don't give much of a curve, but there will be some subjective metrics in here as well, for sure. Before we get to the grades, though, just got to remind everyone, if you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, do not look past your backyard. Hughes River Expedition has been vandal owned and operated since 1976 and are ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway, and check out special trips like the one to see the Perced Meteor Shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. So grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. Exhale, man. Full disclosure, I'm producing on my own. I have that like half memorized. I was clicking in the background to get that screen share going. Okay, first team we're going to grade. Probably a really, really short discussion. Your top 5 Portland State Vikings, Colby. Like basics on the Vikings. They were catastrophically terrible. Yep. Went 1-7 in conference, 1-11 on the season. An absolute miracle that Portland State picked up a W at all. I guess that's like the philanthropy of Cal Poly, you could say. On the conference season, your Vikings score 21.4 per game, give up 41 a game. I'm not going to do that math, but it's just under, it's a few.
So 12 points given up in conference play this year.
All right. So Colby, what is, and by the way, Portland State fired Bruce Barnum. We're going to get to that more in depth in a minute, but Colby, your grade for Portland State on the year?
I mean, it's an F, right? And part of that is obviously the team did not perform well, like you said, 1-11 overall, only won a single conference game. That's the sky was down this year, and so if you were gonna win a few games, like we'll talk about this in a minute, but Eastern is 4-4. If you were gonna win some games, this would have been the year to do it, and they could not figure it out, but partially that F is also falling on the shoulders of the administration, where it's like they're not giving Barnum very much to work with. They play in a high school stadium far away from campus. There's just a lot of really funky things that go on at Portland State. And so it's a tough gig. Barnum's out. It's probably like a sigh of relief on his part. But, yeah, it's an F, right? There's not a lot to love.
No, this was the year that the bottom fell out at Portland State. So, yeah, resounding F. I want to hold off till we get to the other. We're going to have a point where we talk about the coaches who've been fired. We'll hit that in a second. I want to hold off to talk about that just for a minute. But this was Portland State was just joyless, right? I mean, like there was virtually no reason to pay attention whatsoever. The Cal Poly win feels preposterous. Yeah, I mean, Portland State got their ass kicked virtually week in, week out. And I don't even know what's salvageable in Portland State. Okay, we're done. Done talking Portland State. The next tier we're going to talk about, we got 4 teams that went 2-6 in conference play. Portland State went 1-7. Weber, Idaho, Cal Poly, UNC. Colby, where you want to start?
Let's do start. We'll just go from the bottom. So we can talk about the Wildcats now, and then we'll move it up from there. So Weber State gets, in my view, they get a D plus because it was not a good season. You won some of the games you should have won, right? Like you survive a Butler game that was just dumb. You ended up beating McNeese on the road. Cool. But then once you get to conference play, until 2 days ago, the only conference win you had was against Portland State, right? You lost every other game. So the only reason that it's not a flat F is because they did end up firing Coach Mickey Mental with 2 games left in the season. A lot of people said, well, why now? And I think that it was good because while the game against the Stripes did not go as well as we had hoped, the game on Saturday against NAU went fairly well. And I think that's a big reason why that happened is because there's a quarterback change. There's also a coaching change. And so you don't get that outcome if Mickey Mental is still your head coach. So you get some points for being able to maybe make some kind of a shift toward the end of the season. And you did win some games that you should have won anyway. But beyond that, I mean, losing that Eastern game was just dumb. That was a super winnable game, and you just lost in front of the home crowd. Just D plus for me.
If Weber does not fire Mickey Mental, this is a resounding F.
Yeah.
But they did. So that changes the grade for me. And hey, just to bring up, because you referenced like, hey, why fire Mental now? He made it through just about 3 full seasons at Weber. Obvious downtrend. Year one, he's 6-5. Last 2024, they're 4-8. While he coached at Weber this year, they go 3-7. And I feel like 2024, I don't know, you can squint at that team and be like, I don't know, maybe they should have pulled off a couple more W's, right? I don't think that was the case this year. So no, I'm going to go D minus because I don't know. No, D. No, you're right. D. I'll just go D. All right. Just a regular D, not D plus, not a D minus, just a D. We covered the demerits. I mean, honestly, this season is now all about, the Weber talk now is all about what happens next. And I guess you're our Weber. You're the one here with the Weber background, man. Do you have any direction you're hoping Weber looks or any direction you're hoping Weber does not look with this next hire?
Well, so because of the way things went on Saturday, some people are saying, well, maybe we should give, the offensive line coach was the interim, Coach Brett Myers, and they're like, maybe we should give Myers. It's like, no, stop that right now. Like, that is not it. I think that they can't hire in-house. They really need to go and get somebody. And if I'm picking that somebody, that person really needs to be a defensive person, like we should try as much as we can to rekindle the Jay Hill glory days of having fantastic defenses and an offense that would just be enough to get it done. Like, that was a recipe for success. Obviously, there were shortcomings once we got into those later weeks in December, where once you get to the quarters and later, the gap really kind of shows itself. But overall, I think that that's the way you have to go. And allegedly, the school is looking forward to a big national search. They're saying they're going to do the whole stuff. This is all talk, so we'll just kind of see. There's some names that have been kicked around. I don't know how serious they are, but so far the names that I've heard kicked around, I've only loved maybe one of them. So I'm hoping to be surprised by who they end up pulling out. And then we've already seen some players hit the portal today. It's understandable. And because of the way that this team kind of was, there's just so far, there's only one player that I'm sort of like, oh, really? That guy's transferring? That sucks. Everyone else so far has been like, fine, whatever.
Well, look, your team finishes 2-6, 4-8 on the year with a defense that gave up 37 in Big Sky play, which the only team who was worse was top 5 Portland State. Virtually no one is expendable. And honestly, for a new coach, he might value just the open roster spot over a good amount of guys who might leave at this point. So yeah, I feel like the brain dead template for a lot of potential coaching hires in the Big Sky is one: is there a coordinator who's been successful in the Big Sky or successful in the Missouri Valley? As that's a place to look, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Mickey Menzel, he coached 2 years at D2, and he was, he had a good. He doesn't get hired at Weber if he didn't do well D2. Brian Wright at NAU, who I love that NAU completely throttled their playoff aspirations, just getting their asses kicked against.
It wasn't a close game, guys. I was in the building, and it wasn't close. It was like, wow, they're really going to lose.
Yeah, it's a team that we just covered. If they don't fire the coach, this is probably an F that we give, or like a D- in that range. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even, with some of the teams that fire their coaches, I barely think even talking about their production, I don't know how much it matters, because a lot of guys are going to be gone for next year. So no, I'm fine giving this one a D. And then, hey, next school to talk about, now we've had 3 schools that fired their coaches. We covered Portland State, fired Bruce Barnum. Weber fired Mickey Menzel. Cal Poly fired Paul Wolf. And Cal Poly on the year, they go 2-6 in conference, 4-8 on the season. There's 4 teams that have that exact resume of 2-6 in conference, 4-8 on the season. We'll talk about the other 2 after we finish this batch. But the highlights for the Mustangs: they pick up a week 1 win against non-scholarship San Diego. They pick up a week 3 win against D2 Western Oregon. They pick up a week 5 win over Sac State, where Sac State gifted them about 5 turnovers. Somehow this team found a way to lose to Portland State 40-35. But then they pick up a week 13, 12th game of the season win over Eastern.
Yep. And
slam the door on Eastern finishing above 500 in conference. So yeah, anyway, Paul Wolf being fired, I guess, look, I don't know if I would. So in the way we just said, Weber's score goes up because of firing their coach. I don't necessarily feel that way about Cal Poly, because Cal Poly sucked for sure, but it did seem like they were finally getting traction, and they're on a 5-year project of, when Bo Baldwin took over and they tried to move from triple option to spread. Bo Baldwin got no traction whatsoever. This felt like the best team they've had in that 5-ish years since they've tried to rebuild things. And, there were times where Cal Poly was that dreaded F word, frisky. But I guess my grade here, I'm going to go straight D of, there was some improvement, but I'm honestly, to me, getting rid of Paul Wolf here is it's a surprise that's the direction they go. But Colby, what say you?
Yeah, so I agree with you that firing Paul Wolf was sort of a head scratcher, because this was probably the most traction that they'd had in a long time, where you were winning games, where before, I mean, I think folks can agree that Cal Poly, by and large, just like Northern Colorado for a long time, have been doormats in the Big Sky. This is a scheduled dub for pretty much anybody who's playing them. And the only reason anybody really wants to play them is because SLO is nice. You know what I mean? So it's a nice game to go down and do, because you're probably going to win and the weather's great. But firing Paul Wolf was really surprising yesterday, because, like you said, I thought that they were making some headway, some progress toward what they were trying to achieve, even though Baldwin's been gone for a couple of years now. Wolf was still seemingly trying to run that same regime, and it was finally starting to work. I mean, because they've found decent quarterbacks, right? It just seems like they haven't been able to put the other pieces together. But yeah, and then they come out and they say, we're firing him. So it could be better, right? They could go out and hire somebody and they could really change things up in SLO, but at the same time, it's an unknown commodity, and so they may be worse. They may go back to what they've been, which is a doormat, whereas with Wolf, they sort of had at least something. They knew that they were going in the right direction. So for me, if I'm picking this grade, I mean, I would have given them like a C minus before this firing, but now I'm going down to a D minus, because it could be better, but it seems like you just blew up any momentum that the team had gotten, especially like you said, ending the season with a win over Eastern, who was fraudulent. Like, why would you blow that up? I don't know, but that's what they chose to do. So for me, it's a D minus. It sort of knocks everything back that they had achieved throughout the season, which wasn't much, but it was more than in recent memory.
So to talk about the coaching changes now, because you and I are pretty close on most of these. So we, like I said, Bruce Barnum out at Portland State, Mickey Mental out at Weber State, and Paul Wolf out at Cal Poly. Which move do you like the best? Which move do you like the least? And which is most confusing?
So obviously I like the firing of Mickey Mental the most because I'm tired of watching my team lose. 2019 seems like such a long time ago now. Like, and we said it at the time that like, guys, these are the good old days. And now here we are 6 years removed from it. And it's like, yeah, those were the good old days. So I like that one the best. I just kind of gave my take on firing Paul Wolf. Not really sure why, but at the same time, you could say, well, why would Portland State fire Bruce Barnum? Do they really think that they can get somebody better with the kind of resources that they've dumped into that program? I don't believe that. So I guess maybe that's the head scratcher for me is Portland State firing Bruce Barnum. Like, okay. And then, like I said, I think firing Paul Wolf was probably the wrong move.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think firing Paul Wolf was a mistake because I just thought that they were fine. Cal Poly was finally looking like a team that here's a maybe thing to look at is I'm not saying Cal Poly was good defensively, but they had been just catastrophically bad for damn near half a decade defensively. And this was the first year that Cal Poly looked, they're not like the dumpster fire at the bottom that like Portland State is. They made some progress. Offensively, they had some up and down issues, but part of that was quarterback play as well and quarterback injury. It helps explain that. So that one I don't like. That. I mean, I'm sure Cal Poly is going to be able to land someone because hey, remember when they turned over initially, they got Bo Baldwin, which at the time that was thought of as a fantastic hire at Cal Poly.
Yeah.
So that they are a place who can get someone better. Although that they're challenging in a different way than Portland State is, just because of the cost of living. That was the thing Bo Baldwin said one day at media days. Hey, never mind the academic requirements, which are really high. The cost of living is really, really hard to get enough guys there. So that's what I dislike. Mickey Mental, yeah, that's the best one. They're moving in the wrong direction. Weber didn't wait for the contract to expire. We're not that far from Weber State being very good in the Big Sky. This is a place that can turn around. This is a place that I guarantee there are going to be good guys who think this is a distressed asset that can get better quick. By the way, kind of like Idaho, when Idaho got Jason Eck, in 2022. Idaho had been bad forever, but you could understand why a coach would be like, yeah, I can use this place to launch my career. And I think Weaver's going to be the same way. Portland State, I just felt like they were in a no-win situation no matter what. I can tell you in the Idaho game, Bruce Barnum looked like he was trying to get fired. Like he looked completely disengaged. He looked honestly like he was just kind of, plodding around on the sidelines. And like the moment that stood out the most to me is towards the end of the game, Portland State, like a linebacker or something like that gets hurt. Barnum doesn't even go out to check on the dude. Thomas Ford did from Idaho, but like Barnum just stood there dicking around on the sideline. He just looked completely disengaged. But at the same time, like you said, the funding for the program's shit. Where they play is terrible. I don't know. I mean, hey, Colby, if you're an OC who gets offered the Portland State job and you're an OC at a good, solid Missouri Valley school, are you going to gamble your career on Portland State?
No, I mean if I'm already at a place in the valley that is decent, I'm just waiting for the right job. There's no need to rush into taking a job like that, in my view.
No. So I guess I'd say that one is maybe baffling in some ways because Barnum has had relative success. But I just think look, if Portland State bottoms out like they did with Barnum, I think they just got to go. Like a D2 NAIA, like Ron in the comments section says, they got it. They just got to go because they're not serious about football, and everyone else in the Big Sky is. And like, look, this is a good FCS conference. If you're not going to try, then like, no, it's not going to work, guys. Okay, we got two other teams that finished 2-4, 4-8 on the season. You want to go UNC or Idaho?
Yeah, let's talk about Northern Colorado first, and then we'll go to your Vandals. So with the Bears this year, also some steps forward, right? Do I still think Ed Lamb is the answer for them? No, I don't. But were they better defensively this year? Yeah, they weren't awful. There were some times where, they won a couple of games. And it wasn't like, I don't know. It didn't feel like last year they won a game. They beat Weber for our homecoming game. And it was just a shock, right? Because Weber State was coming off of that win at Montana. And it was like, wow, maybe they have something. And then immediately just fell apart. This year, it felt like the defense was a little more consistent for the Bears. And because of that, they were able to get him. Because Eric Gibson Jr., I think, is a decent quarterback. He's not in a great spot, right? But there were moments throughout the season where you could see that, like, this guy can throw. And, like, Carver Cheeks was a good receiver. Like, they had some weapons, right? And so 2-6 this year is in conference play is definitely a step forward for them when they went, 2 years without winning a game. So it's definitely better. But do I still think that at some point they're going to need to ditch Ed Lamb and go and get a coach? Because Northern Colorado is as much as Greeley, people hate on Greeley, and I'm one of those people, like, they have other programs that are good. Like the Hoops team was good last year and has had recent success. Like they won the CIT, 7 years ago. And so
they're good volleyball too.
Yeah, they sure are, man. Dude, the hated rival, man. I hate that volleyball team so much because there was a 5-year span where either we were winning the chip or they were winning the chip, and they got 3 of those 5, I think. It's like, man. But Ron's right. 4-8 ain't great. It's not great, but if you look at where they have been, 4-8 starts to look a lot better. So if I'm going to give the Bears a grade, I'm going to give them a C- because this is noticeable progress. They were in games. They were pesky. They weren't a doormat. But overall, there still is a lot of work to be done. And like you said, this is a conference it's a good FCS conference. And if you're going to be competitive, you have to care. It seems like they care, that they're being more serious now than they were, when they had, what's-his-face before, where it was just like...
Ed McCaffrey.
Yeah, when they had Ed McCaffrey and his kids on staff, clipboard jokes aside, it wasn't serious. You know what I mean? It just wasn't. So, C-, there's some progress here, but if they really want to flip the switch and be competitive in the way that, the next few schools we'll talk about you're probably going to have to make a coaching change at a certain point.
Ron Lowney in the comment section having a field day. Phase 1. Idaho ties for second worst team in the league. Ponder that. 4-8 ain't great. And then Ron Lowney, I want you as my professor / boss. You said C-?
Yeah, I gave him a C-, right?
Yeah.
Very generous. It is generous, right? But like I said, compared to where they've been, where it's like this team is bad, they didn't win. This strip didn't win a game for 2 years. Progress.
Yeah, they picked up 3 D1 wins this year. Beat Houston Christian, who is terrible. Idaho.
D1 win, air quotes.
Yeah, they beat Idaho 49-33. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. That was your guys' homecoming game, right?
Oh, yeah. Feel
your pain, man.
That was painful. And then close the season with a 24-13 win over top 5 Portland State. And, okay, here's the thing that I want to bring. There's 2 games that I think are kind of big to understanding or for me to decide how I feel about Northern Colorado. Previous 2 seasons, UNC in Big Sky Conference play averaged right around 12 points a game, which I don't need to explain. That's catastrophically bad.
That's bad. You're not going to win a lot of games scoring just 12 points, period.
This season, UNC bumped that number up to a still league worst 20.8 points per game, which that had been to me their biggest issue. Is like, yes, they suck defensively, but when you're scoring 12 points a game, like you're giving the other team a chance to score a lot. Now, here's what I'm saying about these 2 games. 20.8 is not fantastic anyway. but there were two huge conference games that really pumped up that number to 20.8. They were back-to-back games. It was beating Idaho 49-33 and then losing 40-35 to Sacramento State. After that, the final 5 weeks of the season, the highest output was 24 against Portland State. Other than that, did not break 20 after that Sac State game. And I say that because if you remove those two games from their conference season, this team averaged 13.67 points per game.
Yeah, that average plummets.
Yes. Which is to say those outlier games, which were not close to reproduced elsewhere throughout the entire season, I don't think that's who UNC was. I think who they were the other 10 weeks is closer to who I think they were. So highlights UNC gave Vandals like their worst week of the season, almost. But I'm gonna go D+. Did they make progress? Yes. Ed Lamb had 1 win in the first 2 years. He had 4 this season, 3 D1 wins. But I will say, like Ron says, the comment section still BAD. Yeah, still bad for sure.
Yep.
And I guess I'm starting to get to the point with UNC where I thought Ed Lamb was a home run hire for them at the time. Because he'd been good at Southern Utah. He won conference championships at Southern Utah. But we're in year 3, and they're still not even. They're still scoring. They need huge outlier weeks to get to averaging under 3 touchdowns a game. I don't know. It feels like next year kind of has to be a step is made, or it's time to move on, like you said. Yeah, there certainly is some talent in Greeley, which the previous 2 years, especially offensively, you would not say that. And UNC was a little bit stronger against the pass defensively than I think a lot of people expected heading into the season. But even with that, man, 13-ish a game minus your gigantic outlier weeks, that's bad. That's not that, and it's not that different from the previous 2 years.
Yeah, and still the worst red zone defense in the league. Only the 3rd worst red zone offense in the league. So it's like you're not doing great, but there were bright spots, and maybe more bright spots this year than in years past.
Yes. However, the standard is subterranean fiber optic cable. So, all right, we're going to get to Idaho in a second. But before we get to Idaho, because it's our time, we got to talk about vandalgear.com. Vandalgear.com stepped up to the plate with a bunch of new Idaho shirts. Like they're on the screen right now for viewers, like Fightin' Tater shirt. You got your Home Sweet Dome, which matches the Amalgamated Sugar sponsor of the Dome. You got your retro Idaho Vandal Grumpy Joe shirt. Look, you have your ugly Christmas sweater. And the pricing for this stuff is way better than virtually anywhere else online, and they're not skimping on quality whatsoever. I own multiple shirts from Vandal Gear. They're really high quality, real comfortable, fantastic place to go. So A, get your Vandal Gear there. B, if you're a school, a company, an org, and you want to do a fundraiser, or you want to have swag, or you just want to have something with your logo on it, get a hold of Jeff. The company name is Pacific Custom Sportswear. They've been operating over in Spokane for over 25 years. He can work with you to either put your existing logo or help you make your own logo and put it on anything. That counts: shirts, t-shirts, hoodies. He's also selling accessories now too. So, hey, you want a bottle or a tumbler? You can get one with your logo on it. You can get a pint glass. You can get a rocks glass, whatever. But anyway, get a hold of Jeff at Pacific Custom Sportswear. The website is vandalgear.com. My Idaho Vandals, Colby. We do have some coaching news out of Idaho, which I'll get to before I throw it to you for the grade. But look, the resume for the Vandals is, I think, of the 4-8 teams, that loss to Northern Colorado was goddamn ugly. It was without the starting quarterback Joshua Wood. Still, that was an ugly, ugly game. There are I feel like there's more highlights to this 4-8 team than the others. However, it's still a 4-8 team. The Vandals pick up wins at Northern Arizona, against top 5 Portland State, and then at home early in the season against St. Thomas non-scholarship and Utah Tech. Utah Tech will be joining the Big Sky next year. Also had 3-point losses at Washington State week 1 and San Jose State week 4. And the second to last week of the season, another 3-point loss to Sacramento State. However, week 12 against Idaho State, absolutely ugly. So that's like, hey, your basic resume. The loss at Eastern with a backup quarterback was one of the worst games I've seen in my life. So bad that I came back after a concert to record an episode about it at midnight. But anyway, that's your basic background for Idaho this year, Colby. And we do know last 2 weeks of the season, OC Matt Linehan was demoted as a play caller. Was never announced, but he moved from the booth down to the field, and he was not keeping a play sheet. And as of about 5 a.m.-ish this morning, Matt Linehan no longer has any University of Idaho reference on his Twitter page. AKA, it seems, well, one, we know he was demoted as OC. He was not play caller the last 2 weeks. But it looks like head coach Thomas Ford got rid of his OC. We also know the D-line coach just openly said he's no longer in Idaho anymore. So we have those coaching changes so far. But hey, Colby, with all that said, how do you grade Idaho?
So, I mean, not to be too harsh here, but I'm going to give Idaho a D because, like you said, some of those early season performances seemed like, I mean, no one expected that Idaho was like going to go to the quarterfinals this year or anything, right? Like a lot of talent left. There were a lot of graduations, new head coach coming in. Understandable. But after those performances, almost beating Wazoo, almost beating San Jose State, which would have, I mean, even one of those would have been nice. FBS wins are usually hard to come by. And so when you can get them, but when you lose by 3, it's like, okay, maybe we have something here. But then as time went on, I mean, injuries play a factor, right? Like you said, backup quarterback at the Eastern game, the Northern Colorado game didn't look great. And so you sort of see this decline. I will say that they should have won that SAC game. We can talk all about how Big Sky refs are gonna Big Sky ref. But
well, on the bright side, at least SAC's out of the picture because 2 of the worst calls last couple of years are at SAC, and that just leads me to believe that they have dog shit cameras.
Yeah, it's fair, right? Because I mean, there was this, and then was the Montana game, right, last year.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like you had this hope from early in the season that like maybe they could be something. Maybe they could at least be middle of the road Big Sky team, right? Which is fine. It's no, I don't think anybody necessarily was like, we're going to the playoffs, it's happening. But I think that if you had also said 2-6 at the end of the season, you would have been like, no way. But this is just kind of the way that things shook out. So to me, it's a D. But already they're making changes, right? The offense was a problem, and they knew that, and they tried to take steps to remedy that. Those steps didn't work necessarily, so they're going to go a completely different direction next season, it seems. I like Thomas Ford. I think that he's a decent coach, and also if you want to make progress, you cannot go around firing first-year head coaches. You just can't. So smart by the university to not say 2-6 in conference play is unacceptable. We are going to get canned Thomas Ford. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to give him time because you have to give him time. And so, yeah, there have been some moves that should give Vandals fans some hope for next year. But overall, a disappointing season, especially with some of the moments that we saw early on where it seemed like maybe they could be something.
Now, I do have to give you a small amount of pushback about the expectation thing. You may have been there correctly, but the national media and I'll own this, Tubbs the club. We thought Idaho was going to make the playoffs and was going to, especially after that 3-point WSU loss, we really thought Idaho was going to be in contention to skip the first round, which meant that was a rough fall from pretty much from San Jose after San Jose stayed on. Like Idaho is number 12 in preseason polls. So like there were high expectations. Now, of course, in retrospect, with the volume of every good school is going to lose their P4 transfers, right? But when you have a coaching change and you lose the wave of P4 transfers and then a different wave of guys following the coach elsewhere, that's just a different level to have to replace. And Idaho fans like myself, we should have flagged that as like, you're not going to internally replace that, capitalizing at 90%. Come on, guys, wake up. But it took us a while to get our wake up. Like James in the comment section, we thought 10-2, Brian. We thought 10-2. For a while that was discussion. 10-2, 9-3, something like that. Not 4-8. But I'm going to go D. Now, Idaho did have 4 one-score losses. Now, it might honestly be for the best that Idaho didn't win many of those, because I think the worst case scenario for Idaho is they finish 6-6 and there's no major change at the coordinators. And like if Idaho's lesson from this season was, we just need to run it back again and be slightly better, and instead of 6-6 now we're 8-4 or something like that. I think like whole like big picture change for Thomas Ford is the right lesson to learn from this season, and Idaho's already done that. But the Vandals, look, it was a rough go, man. I got to tell you, watching the run of losing 4 consecutive losses over the course of 5 weeks, because the bye week was there. San Jose State loss, Montana loss, UNC loss, Eastern loss. And honestly, the back-to-back, first thinking, hey, we'll compete with the Grizz in Wa Grizz, getting our ass kicked. Okay, that's rough, whatever. Bye week, Northern Colorado comes and takes the top off of Idaho just all day long, a team that we just covered. But if you just remove the Idaho game from UNC's schedule, they scored 16.7 points a game in Big Sky play. They hung 49 on Idaho, could have hung 56 if they didn't mercy roll at the end. So the Idaho season had incredible peaks and troughs. But no, D is the right call. With the good news being, hey, getting rid of Matt Linehan was a step in the right direction. Rob Maher in the comment section saying more injuries too than any other Big Sky school, down to 5th string QB, a game or two, RBs out, wide receiver secondary. I think Davis had the worst injury luck. They were down about 15 starters at some point, Rob. But your point's taken. Idaho did have some units decimated pretty goddamn bad. The answer's got to be D. Like you're not firing your offensive coordinator after year one if you're like, we're pretty close, right? So no. I'm assuming Thomas Ford has to kind of agree with me. Ron Lowney, the only D is the number 1 Idaho gave out. Jesus Christ. Thank you, Ron. Thank you. It's like the Sun. This isn't Sunday, but like the Sunday show comment crew is always a little bit more committed, Colby. So
hey man, we're all hanging out together.
Yeah. Okay, dude. Next batch of teams to talk about. NAU and Eastern, both of these teams finish 4-4 in Big Sky play. Where do you want to go first?
Let's start with Eastern because I want to rip on them for being frauds. I think Eastern. So Eastern at 4-4. I don't think that if you had said that Eastern was going to be 4-4 coming into the season, they probably would have been happy in Cheney, right? Because things have not been great. They have standards there too, like they are the last Big Sky team to win a national championship. And so Eastern fans, I think, are growing weary of being down this much. They were very much used to winning games, even in the late 2010s, right? Like they were still a competitive team. They went to the semifinals in they went to the national championship game in 2018, didn't they? Because they beat Maine.
Yeah, that was the when Eric Berrier took over for Gage Gubrud halfway through that season.
Yeah, and so it's like they have been to Frisco in recent memory. Obviously, it's Nashville this year, but this is not a place I think that Eagles fans would say that they want to be or that they would expect to be, and they haven't. I don't think that they've necessarily seen progress. We keep thinking that last year, Vesperis kind of comes out and it's like, oh, well, maybe this is the next great Eastern quarterback, because it seemed like in Cheney, they at least always had that. They could always have at least a great quarterback. Then Vesperis transfers. He goes to Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech is, in my opinion, got shafted yesterday in the seeding, but whatever. We'll see. The OVC is not a strong conference. But now they have to figure it out again, right? And so it seemed like they did that again. They kind of figured it out a little bit at the quarterback position later on in the season, although black mark on their end of season report because you do lose to Cal Poly the last game of the season, and then they immediately fire their head coach. So it's like that's a bad loss. But if I'm giving the Eags a grade this year, 4-4, man. That's I would like to be 4-4 right now. I will tell you that. I would not mind being 4-4. So if I'm going to look at the Eagles, I'm going to say C-, because it doesn't seem like they necessarily fixed the coaching problems that are holding them back, but they're doing the best that they can with what they have, which they've always seemed to get the most out of their guys. So they're in a certain situation, but they've had success in that situation in the past. They had a little bit more success this year, but it's still not up to their standard, I would say. So C minus for me.
Yeah, so 4-4 in conference, and hey, just to be fair, Patty Frakes in the comment section saying 4-4 in conference, honestly better than I expected preseason.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the
Patty's
Cal
right.
Poly loss, they're playing like their fifth string quarterback. Jake Shackle did not play final week of the season. So to run through the resume, because I'm with you. This is the most fraudulent 4-4 team in the history of 4-4 teams or 500 teams in Big Sky play. But they did go 4-4. So look, they're the wins they came up with on the year, five on the year. They beat Western Illinois, who is just catastrophically terrible.
They've been so bad since 2017, man. Like, we played them in the first round of the playoffs. It was the first Weber State playoff home game ever. And they came to us, and everyone was sweating because they're like, oh, their team is full of a bunch of Big Ten rejects. They're going to be somebody. We ended up beating them, and it seems like they fell off a cliff. They haven't been good since.
Yeah, I mean they're in the OVC Big South now.
They are
So like,
now, yeah.
yeah, like
But
they don't have. I don't know. They don't have to be the definition of good like the Big Sky has. But anyway, the point of this was not to litigate Western Illinois. My bad. Western Illinois sucks. The end. Okay. Eastern also beat Portland State by 8.
okay,
They beat Idaho. This was the worst Idaho game I ever saw. If Eastern catches Idaho any other week but that week, I don't think Idaho loses that game. That was pretty much the game that did the OC. That was the writing was officially on the wall after that game for Matt Linehan. They beat Weber by 3, and they beat Northern Colorado second to last week of the season, 27-7. Just bring that up to say there were 3 narrow wins in Big Sky play against that. I do think there was a little luck there, but to be fair, they did pick up the win. Like they beat Idaho with Idaho's man. Like Idaho played like 3 different guys at quarterback that game. That's how desperate Idaho was. So like legitimately, it would be there's no other week I think Eastern beats Idaho. So I'm gonna go C. I'm gonna go C, like above C minus, because I think they outperformed expectations. They did get to 4-4, but like, look, hey, Aaron Best took a long time to figure out who the best quarterback on the team was. That was a problem. I've been told that Jake Shackle just wasn't that great in practice, but like he was easily the best option they had during the actual games. But this is a 4-4 that I will put 0% stock in for 2026. I just think there's a lot of luck there to get to 4-4. So congrats, Eagles, getting there. But I'm still very skeptical, and I don't know if this is how Eastern fans feel about this within as far as Aaron Best, because it is a trend back. It's a baby step back upward for Best, and Best has a weird contract. He's probably going to be there for a minute, but I'm not so sure if I'm an Eagle fan. I want a baby step up and have it maybe put off a coaching change another year or two. Northern Arizona, Colby, the other 4-4 team, they finished 7-5 on the Big Sky on the overall season. Eastern finished 5-7 on the overall season. NAU goes 7-5. The Lumberjacks were ranked for the majority of the year.
yeah.
Did not pick up a single. Their best win was over Southern Utah. Week 2 was that? Southern Utah finished 7-5.
Yeah.
That was week 3. That was their best win. They also picked up wins over Incarnate Word, Portland State, Idaho State, Northern Colorado, and Cal Poly. And then completely, the NAU's in the driver's seat to make the playoffs. Then they lose to you guys by 20 points.
Yeah.
So
in a game that they really weren't in. Like, they tied the game I think it was like 14-14 at one point. But then after that, like, they let a freshman quarterback throw the ball all over them, and it was just, I don't know. Their secondary was sort of the opposite of what it was last year. Where last year their secondary was really good, and this year their secondary was really bad, and it got fully taken advantage of on Saturday by Weber State, which is weird because if Kingston Tisdale does not start on Saturday, they probably win that game because Dijon Jennings it just doesn't seem to have the arm that Tisdale does. But yeah, I'm going to go with a D for these guys, right? Because like you said, they had been ranked most of the season. They had some wins. If you look at their resume, they pretty much beat everyone that they should beat, right, in the Big Sky, in a year where the Big Sky was down.
Yeah.
They lost to the teams that they probably should, except for Weber State, right? That last game is just like, man, I mean, you could tell me how you felt about the Idaho game, because that was a home game for them. You guys had to go visit them. And we've talked about the injury situation in Moscow. And so maybe there was something different that week that was different later because of the injury situation. But to me, NAU not making the playoffs is just underperforming straight up. Like, the Big Sky only got 3 teams in the playoffs this year. How many did the Valley get? They got like 5?
I don't have the number on the Valley. I know the Big Sky only got 3. They're 3 of the top 8 and no one else.
Yep. And so it's just like, that's, for this conference, that's disappointing. And Northern Arizona probably, I mean, SAC losing on Saturday pretty much sealed their fate that they weren't going to get in, because I think probably losing to Cal Poly, even if they had won, even if they had beat Davis, do you think that SAC gets in? We can talk about that later. But NAU, if they had just won on Saturday, they probably get a slot. And they don't. They just totally fell apart and tanked. And so that's a bad look in my eyes, especially in a year where you've been ranked most of the year. Because, I mean, Pennington had a good year. He was good. Colby Katzis is a great kick returner. He's a great wide receiver. But man, just a disappointment overall, I think.
It's weird that NAU this year, I feel they're essentially who they were last year, right? 2024, they're essentially like the last team to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then they get shut out in the playoffs by, it was Abilene Christian, I think, in 2024. But anyway, they barely get into the playoffs, get their ass kicked, and just, they make the case that, hey, maybe we were the frauds who should not have made it, but we did. So, making the playoffs is a big milestone. Then this season, they looked definitively okay, essentially the whole year. During the Idaho game, I didn't think NAU was better than Idaho. Not for like 1 second. We just covered Idaho finished 4-8. We just gave Idaho a D. Mm-hmm. And I don't think for 1 second NAU looked like the better football team. There certainly are some pieces like you hit on already. Kind of weird, some weird play calling stuff with Brian Wright throughout the season too. Like in the Idaho game, like I don't know why they didn't throw it overwhelmingly the whole game, because they're certainly stronger. In their quarterback and receivers are certainly stronger than the running game was, and their O-line was not that good either. Which, to me, that nudges you in the direction of just throw the ball more, man. Get some quick passes in there. I'm going to give them this.
It seemed like they lacked weapons a little bit from the team that I saw on Saturday, because, they went to Katzis a lot late in the game, and that makes sense because he's a playmaker, right? And then when they needed the check down, they'd go to Cromwell. And I felt like Cromwell has really good hands for a running back. His numbers don't jump off the page in terms of just like carries and running the ball, but he had some nice plays. But after that, it seemed like the offense was maybe a little bit flat, that there wasn't much else for them out there.
Yeah. I'm going to give him a C. If I'm an NAU fan, I give us an F for throwing away the playoffs that last week of the season.
Yeah.
But I also think if they make the playoffs, they probably get their ass kicked again week 1, because that's who this team is. They are, in spite of the some of the things we hit on, strength for NAU. They're okay. That's just it. They're sort of a Mendoza line still in some ways in the conference. If you're better than NAU, you've got a chance to be make the playoffs. If you are not better than NAU, you probably suck. Weird to say that's where they are, even finishing 7-5. But that had NAU gone 8-4, they would have been in the same discussion of Eastern, of like, okay, this is the least impressive 8-4 team I will probably see in my lifetime. So I don't know. That's where I am. Next 2 teams we got to talk about: Idaho State and Sac State. Maybe let's just talk about Sac State, because that was the other team that played themselves out of the playoffs this last week of the season. Hornets go on the year 7-5, 5-3 in Big Sky play. Picked up wins over vaunted Mercyhurst, Central Arkansas, Weber State, Northern Colorado, Eastern, top 5 Portland State, and a bullshit win over Idaho where they were the beneficiaries of a really, really shitty call that was game altering in the last
led to a touchdown that gave him, the win.
Yeah. So phase 1, to answer your playoff question, if Sac State wins last week of the season, they're 8-4 on the year, 6-2 in conference with a win over a team who's now the number 8 team in the playoffs. That seems like a brain dead. They made the playoffs, but without that win over Davis, they don't really have an impressive win on their resume. They essentially beat the teams that were not very good, and they lost to the teams that were good to pretty good. So,
and plus losing to Cal Poly, which hurts their resume badly.
Yeah, and then just from watching them, they played like a team that was like 80% transfers. They were really up and down. That certainly talented, but like, for example, in the Idaho game, which that was the game that Idaho officially switched play callers, aka meaning like they're starting to do stuff they had not practiced nearly as much. Sac State did a lot to keep Idaho in that game. Like Sac State did not. I didn't leave that game thinking, oh, that's a top 16 team for sure. I thought, no, that's a 500-ish team, or depending on your schedule, super hot, cold. When they're hot, they can run real well. They've got a good O-line. When they're not, they have like the worst quarterback combo in the Big Sky, and they make a ton of mistakes. They commit a gigantic amount of penalties. They had like the dumbest instance of a coach being fined ever since I paid attention to watch the Big Sky, like when Brennan Marion pretended that Big Sky, that refs are apparently like targeting Sac State. No, dude, like your team's just incredibly undisciplined and does dumb shit. That's why they're getting.
And they were really one-dimensional, right? Like they ran the ball. That's what they did. They had the worst passing offense in conference play.
Yeah.
Like
I'm going to give them a C+ because they were right at the edge of making the playoffs. I will say good riddance to Sac State, though, at this point in the Big Sky. When they were in the Big Sky, I was happy for the Hornets to be good, but I don't know. This last year has kind of soured the taste in my mouth for Sacramento State. Going FCS independent, enjoy, or if they get that MAC invite, enjoy playing on Tuesdays in front of 15 people. I would not want either of those options for my school. So thanks for the $1 million on the way out, Sac State. You get a C+ because you're close to playoffs, but not quite. What say you?
Yeah, so we've talked about a number of things already, right? The resume was not strong, and it had some blemishes. It was the first year of Brennan Marion's go-go offense, so there are obviously going to be kinks, but they were extremely one-dimensional. They ran the ball, and so it just, in my view, that's not an effective way to win games. Like running the ball is nice, but it's supposed to allow you to at least open up the passing game, and they had no business doing that. Like when they played Weber, that was one of the worst games I ever sat through because we had gone through the lightning delay. It was raining. It was cold, and they were struggling that first little bit. And then once they decided to finally start running the quarterback on the edges, Weber State did not have the lateral speed to keep up with that, and the game fell apart for them, and they ended up getting blown out. But yeah, man, like if I'm giving them a grade, and part of this too is that there was a lot of media stuff from SAC this year, right? For better or for worse. You can decide whether that was good for them or bad for them, but it felt like a lot of distraction, and I think it annoyed people.
Yeah.
I think that they definitely bought into the no news is bad news type of thing.
Yeah.
Or anyway, like any news is good news. It doesn't matter as long as people are talking about you, regardless of how they're talking about you. They fully bought into that. And so for me, it's like, no, man, like you guys are annoying. Like this ended up getting really annoying at the end of the day because it was clear that if they did say they had beat Davis, that would have been their only good win all year. Like no offense to Idaho, but like that would have been the only thing on the resume that was worth talking about. And then they still probably have to play in the first round, and then it's sort of like an NAU situation where they probably get blown out because, I mean, we made this joke a lot in recent years about the fact that Sac doesn't win in the playoffs. They don't. Like how many playoff wins do they have to their name? Like 2?
I don't I remember if it was, well, I think it's 2 because they won one with Troy Taylor and they won. We have sometimes I lose names of coaches earlier than I should. The dude who took over for Troy Taylor and then left to be his DC at Stanford.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the dude's name too.
Andy Thompson.
Yeah,
They
Andy
won.
Thompson.
They beat North Dakota in Andy Thompson's first year. So yeah, you're right. They picked up 2 wins. Now, of course, with Troy Taylor, they got to skip the first round a couple times. So
but still, if you're getting seeded, it implies that you are good enough, that you are hosting a team that played last week, and that you should beat them, right? Like of those 8 teams, it's implied that you should probably be good enough to beat them. And how many times did they not? So to me, this team gets a D+ because all the annoying media stuff. There were no quality wins whatsoever, and just overall, thanks for the $1 million. Go with God. Nice knowing you. It's been nice, but it ain't been real nice.
No, you're right. Sorry, going back, they skipped the first round twice. No, like 3 times. The Troy Taylor,
Yeah.
They skipped the first round, and
these are conference championship seasons for them, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, they tied for first or won the Big Sky outright all those 3 seasons and picked up 1 playoff win.
It was like,
and they got 1 in Andy Thompson's time.
It was like the opposite of Jay Hill, right? Where like every time Jay Hill won the conference championship, we always beat whoever in the first or second round, right? Like you almost always went to the quarters. You went in 17, you went 18, you went to the semis in 19. 20 is a fluke, which, I don't want to talk about that. But then, you get a tough Montana State team in 21 or whatever it was, 22. And then, like, that's it, right? And then that's it. So, I don't know, man. Like, Sac is just disappointing. It's a D+ for me. We'll see how they fare going forward because it's a tough place to be as an FCS independent. Like, are there any others? Are there any other FCS independents?
They're all transitional, like when teams move up, because there's some of the smaller FCS conferences absolutely want people. So look, I'm going to sign off on Sac State with James TA. I give Sac a silent K, and by the way, I've been calling them Sac with a silent K all year. So thank you, James, for picking up on that. I give Sac a silent K, and even that may be too nice. I hate them. Just good riddance for Sacramento State. I've tried really hard on this show to not be flippant towards schools, to just like better talk about each team, right? I can take the mask off now. Like, goodbye, Sac. And enjoy the wilderness, or enjoy playing on Tuesdays in front of 12 people at Cal Expo, aka it's going to be the exact same stuff that Portland State has. Like, I don't think anyone in the Big Sky would right now trade their football scenario for Sacramento State's other than top 5 Portland State. Final 3 teams.
It's wholly self-imposed. Like, it's a self-inflicted wound. All of it is self-inflicted.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Before we hit our top 3 teams, got to talk about show sponsor Snake River Stampede Canadian Whisky. Look, if you haven't tried Snake River Stampede, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's the best Canadian whiskey available in the state of Idaho. You got 2 options. You either have their entry-level Stampede, or, you're going to celebrate a big win. You can reach up, grab the Snake River Stampede 1915 small batch. Both are 3-grain whiskeys. Both have double barrel finishes. Your Stampede is ex-bourbon, then finishes in Oloroso sherry casks. Your 1915 is ex-bourbon to ex-Canadian rye whiskey casks. It's also aged a couple extra years. Either way, look, you can't go wrong with either. They're both fantastic whiskeys at great buys. 26 for the Stampede, 39 for the 1915. That's a really good price for a premium whiskey.
Yeah,
doesn't matter which one you try. Get to an Idaho State liquor store, grab yourself a Snake River. UC Davis, Colby.
Well, did you want to talk about the Stripes? I understand if you don't.
Oh shit, Idaho State. Yeah. Okay, they just beat the hell out of Idaho. Took the Potato State Trophy. They got the Train Bell Trophy from you guys.
They retained the Train Bell Trophy. Yeah, We just had a terrible offense that day. Like, I think that's a different game if Kingston Tisdale starts, but he ended up getting injured in warm-ups, so he did not play that game. If he had played, I think it's a different game. But the Stripes, they probably, in my view, they probably get a B-. They were better. They continue to get better, and it's annoying. The defense it was the first year of former Weber State DC, co-DC Grant Duff in Pocatello. They were better. I don't think that they were great. They had their problems, and they just threw the ball a lot. Like, that's what they did. They weren't as one-dimensional as Sac in that, like, they did have Dason Brooks who can run the ball. He's a good running back, but Cook wanted to throw the ball, and he did. He threw it a lot. I think they had the best passing offense in the conference, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so Brooks finished as the number 3. I'm talking Big Sky stats only.
Yeah,
Brooks
same.
finished as the number 3 rusher in the Big Sky.
Yeah.
The Idaho State was the number 1 passing offense in the Big Sky at just over 300 yards per game. And defensively, the takeaways are sort of mixed. Like they gave up. There's a number 4 scoring defense, giving up 26.4, but as far as total defense, they were the 4th worst. So, the generous take there is bend, don't break. The not generous take is probably defense probably not as good as the scoring defense numbers would indicate. But now, like, the part of being fair to Sac State, one of those wins came against Lincoln, and please tell me after that game, no one ever schedules Lincoln again.
Yeah, like I'm tired of watching them just get blown out by choose your D1 school. Like, it's annoying. Stop scheduling them.
But now, to be fair to the Bengals, they did have a pretty damn tough schedule, which included a 7-point loss to UNLV. I mean, Southern Utah missed the playoffs, but the Thunderbirds were on the cusp of making the playoffs. Lost by 10 to New Mexico, who's sitting at 8-3, I think, right now in the Mountain West. Had losses to Montana State, and Northern Arizona, who we covered, just played themselves out of the playoffs. Highlight of the season has to be the win over Davis, but I mean, the Bengals were sitting at 2-6 heading into the Davis game. They win all 4 games in the month of November over Davis, Cal Poly, Weber, and Idaho. Resounding wins in their trophy games too over Weber State and Idaho. So I'm going to go B. It's a little bit more generous than I should give to anyone with just 5 D1 wins, but this was a very tough schedule, and Idaho State they look like they're just a little bit better every year with Cody Hawkins. Hawkins seems stable staying in Idaho State, as in he doesn't look like he's about to bail by any means.
No, I think he's got at least one more year.
Yeah. So no, I mean, look, they finished 6-6 on the year. Bullshit, 6-6. Yeah, 5-6 in D1 games, but still, they win 4 games in a row in November. They have both of, they reclaim both of, or they keep and then reclaim the 2 trophies for them. Now, realistically, now with an easier schedule next year, probably I've purposely not looked at 2026 schedules for any team, but if this team is close to this good next year with a slightly easier schedule, then I mean, this is a team that we at least have to bring up the topic of, can they sneak into one of those last playoff spots, right? So no, B sounds about right. Like, I don't know how anyone in Pocatello would feel anything but good about how this season finished up.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most hope they've had in Pocatello in a long time.
First team since 2018 to finish 500 or higher on the year. So no, we're both B's. This is a good team for Idaho State. Idaho State probably feels like it's A-ish, but I think you just have to establish, like if you're not in the playoffs, we cannot give you an A. Idaho State definitely gets the benefit of a curve here, right? But whatever, an Idaho State B, maybe that's a Montana D and an Idaho C, but whatever. It's a good year for the Bengals. It was a good year. UC Davis, Colby, finished at 6-2 in Big Sky, 8-3 on the season. They had that week 1 game that was no contest against Mercer. They would have lost that game in my mind, but whatever.
They were going to lose it, right? And then they did the weird no contest thing because of lightning or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, dumb. But Davis, I mean, Caden Pinnick was really good this year. Like, he was really good. Like, they made this sort of nice, seamless transition from Miles Hastings straight into Caden Pinnick, and it worked out really well for them. Like you said, they had a lot of injury problems, especially, I think both Connors brothers got injured, right?
Both did. You heard, I mean, Rex Connors got hurt being put in as a running back.
Yeah, and that dude's an All-American. He's an All-American.
Yeah.
So that hurts. But they did make the playoffs. There were some missteps, like you said, losing to the Stripes. It's an annoying loss. Probably shouldn't have done it if they are who they think they are, but it happens. Luckily, they were able to rebound and they're able to get into the playoffs. So for me, I'm gonna say it's a B plus for them, but that's simply because you should not have lost to the Stripes. Like if you are playoff caliber team the way that you think you are, you should win that game. So, but injuries are a factor, like you said. But at the same time, like injuries are a factor for everybody, man. Like our quarterback broke his leg, and then our second string quarterback can't throw, and then our third string quarterback, you know what I mean? Like our entire running back room was decimated. You know what I mean? Like I don't. Everyone has injuries, dude. Win your games.
Which, to be fair, Davis did. Right, they're
Yeah.
the number 8 seed. They get to skip the first round of the playoffs. It's hard for me to give a grade other than at least an A minus to if you get to skip the first round, because 8 teams do that on the entire season, right? So
Yeah. At the same time, though, I don't think they should have had that 8 seed. I think that should have gone to Tennessee Tech, but whatever.
I don't think they should have had it, but they still did. I think if the Mercer game finishes, they absolutely don't get that. But the season, we have a season that played out. So I'm going A minus. I do think there's a bit of a canyon between Davis and the next 2 teams.
Yeah,
But
definitely. I think that the games that they played, they showed that, right? Like especially that Montana State game where it's just like, no, no.
yeah, but still the only losses for Davis were UW, Idaho State, and Montana State. Picked up wins. Not a ton of super impressive wins, though. I mean, I'm going to go back to your point about probably shouldn't have been top 8. Their best win was either Sac State or Southern Utah.
No,
they did beat NAU. They beat 3 fringe playoff teams, but they beat, other than that, no really impressive wins. However, now, to be fair, again, anyone in the Big Sky is going to have, if you finish, 6-2 in the Big Sky, you're going to be viewed quite highly by the playoff committee because the Big Sky is, one of the 2 best conferences in the nation. But the injury issues, I'm willing to say it's a little bit different. You lose an All-American safety. That's a big deal.
That hurts. That's a big deal.
You also lose a first team level linebacker. That's a big deal. But the bigger deal to me isn't the fact of injuries. It's they still made the top 8 with the injuries. So going to give him an A minus. Curious if Caden Pinnock stays there. Davis also announced after the season, pretty big investment in facilities, including the football stadium. There's some renovations going to go on there. So yeah, A minus. Also, Tim Plow did pretty damn well this season with all the dudes he had to replace. So hey, credit to Plow, because they lost some probably historically good Aggies who graduated in 2024, and this team did better this season than last year, finishing top 8, right? So there you go, A minus. All right, so let's go Montana State. Grizz first. Resume, they had 1 loss. I'll turn it over to you from here.
Yeah, and their 1 loss is to their in-state rival. I mean, the brawl was for the conference championship this year, and I think a lot of people, myself included, felt that Montana State was going to go in there and roll, and they did not. It was a close game. I think one of the Grizz Fan Pod guys said that if you play that game 10 times, it probably goes 5-5, right? The Grizz did the thing that the Grizz always do, where they play a relatively soft schedule out of conference, but as time wears on, they seem to gel and click. When I talked to Brent at the beginning of the season over at Grizz Fan Pod about their team, they seem to fully embrace the transfer portal, and basically they brought in a completely new defense, ton of FBS guys transferring in. And so I remember him saying specifically, we don't know what we have. We don't know if we're going to be good. We don't know if we don't. But they do the thing where they sort of ramp up. They take care of business. And then, it all leads up to the brawl again. This time, they come up just a little bit short at Washington Grizzly Stadium on Saturday. But overall, if I'm giving the Grizz a grade, it's an A, right? Ayat played really, really well. I think there were a lot of question marks about Ayat. They were always constantly going to the portal to find a quarterback. and Ayak kind of took a step forward this year, so much so that if he stays, and it seems like he will, because of the family legacy there, he really looked a lot better this year, and he probably is a 4-year guy there now,
He's
right?
a
Like,
Walter Payton nominee.
yeah. So like he took a big step forward, and that's I think a key piece of their success. Eli Gilman was incredible for them. The Michael Wortham transfer is nice. It was really nice. That was a luxury for them, I think.
He was good this year. He should
Yeah, he
be
was really
first team
good.
All Big Sky at some level.
Yeah. And I have the all, well, they probably haven't come out quite yet, but don't be surprised when you see his name as a first team All Big Sky guy, right? Like no one would be shocked at that. The defense was maybe not as nasty as Grizz defenses have been in the past, but it was good enough. Montana State had a really good offense this year. Like they blew out Weber State. I think what they scored like 62 points on us or some garbage like that. Like the Grizz they figured it out as time went on, and that defense really kind of put it together. And I think that they're probably going to be just fine in the playoffs. Do I think that they're going to go to Nashville? I don't know, but like they're probably a quarterfinals team for sure, right? Like they're seeded, so they'll have a second round game. They'll get the first round bye, and then you'll just kind of see how it goes. I think that they would have potentially South Dakota State coming to see them though, and that's a tricky matchup. But overall, if I'm giving the Grizz a grade, it's an A, right? You ended up losing to your in-state rival by what, 3 points? Is that what they lost by?
Yeah, and Montana State's the number 2 seed.
Yeah, and they're the 2 seed, and they won the conference championship, and like, it's not that bad. It's an A for me for those guys.
Yeah, A for the Grizz too. Like you hit the point that in general they have the type of out of conference schedule that teams really every Big Sky team wishes they had. However, their second week of the season, the Grizz beat North Dakota, who that's a playoff team, right?
Yeah.
Which that ended up being the best win of the season for the Grizz. But that, to be fair, that wasn't their fault that Idaho fell apart the way the Vandals did, this season. That the Grizz they did have a lot of games that I wish Idaho had on their schedule. But now, to be fair to Montana, generally speaking, they beat the hell out of every one of those teams that, I wish that Idaho would have had on their schedule too. So, they're a great example of, look, you play who you play. And sure, like they don't have like 3 ranked wins or something like that, but like they murdered the teams that were not very good. And, there's the only test greater than Montana State this year is North Dakota State. And the Grizz lost by 3. So I do think that it is a really shitty matchup to potentially have South Dakota State in second round 2, especially if Chase Mason's back, because if Mason's back, then that's a South Dakota State team that's not. They're not missing the first round. So that is a rough matchup if Mason's back. However, if he's not, South Dakota State lost 4 games in a row. Like that's an imminently beatable team without Mason. Yeah. Give him an A. Very good, great coaching job by the Grizz. One of the big things that offensively Grizz fans have been bitching about reasonably about, Brent Peace and Houck running an offense the last few years. Those two figured it out this year. Montana was electric offensively. They're able to use Michael Wortham in a way that Eastern couldn't figure out how to. So, no, another great season for the Grizz. You finished top 3. Like what other grade are you supposed to get other than an A? Leads to our last team, Montana State, who I did pick Montana State to beat Montana. I'm pretty sure you did too.
I wasn't on the show, but I would have, right? Because based on what I saw, and my barometer was Montana played us this way, Montana State played us this way. It wasn't close. Not that either game was close, but Montana State really blew us out. And so in my view, it was like, okay, if that's my measuring stick, I gotta think that the Bobcats are probably in a better position to win, because they had a lot going for them this season. There were lots of good moments offensively and defensively. Like if you look at the defensive stats for conference only play, Montana State is 1 or 2 in just about every single metric you can think of. Like a pretty elite team, probably a team that you should put money on to go to Nashville. I don't think anybody's beating North Dakota State this year. Sorry. But if you're a Bobcat fan, you should probably buy a ticket if you haven't already.
Yeah, this Bobcat team picked up wins against playoff. Sorry, they lost to South Dakota State. That was the playoff loss.
Early in the season, yeah.
Yep, double overtime when Chase Mason was playing for South Dakota State.
So that's saying
Uh,
something.
Yep, they lost to number 7 Oregon. Who gives shit? They beat number 8 in the playoffs, UC Davis 38-17, and we just covered. They beat the number 3 team in the playoffs, Montana 31-28
on the road.
Yep, in the Big Sky season, Bobcats surrendered more than 20 points one total time. That was the last week of the season in the de facto Big Sky Conference Championship game
against their state rival.
Yep, it's a team that gave up 13.8. They gave up 14 touchdowns in 8 Big Sky games. Now you say that they scored 49 touchdowns in 8 Big Sky games. So no, Bobcats are beating the shit out of everyone. Now, maybe good news for us, the Big Sky. Brent Vegan looks like he is being strongly considered at Oregon State. The national news makes it appear that he appears to have interviewed over there. So we'll see what happens there. But until he's gone, he's not. He's been nothing but good at Montana State. This is a school that had to replace generational talent offensively and defensively, and they lost 2 all Big Sky guys on the O-line from the year before as well.
Yeah, which was a strength for them, right? Like that O-line for the past few years has been dynamite. Probably one of the best, if not the best in the country. Just with the motions that they run and the stuff that they do, really good.
Well, then it was again this year, right? In spite of all that, it took them like a month to get everything, resolved, let's say. But Justin Lamson throws 0 picks during Big Sky play. He has to be at least, I bet he's going to get at least a vote for Offensive Player of the Year. Ayat might be the quarterback who gets his first team, but Lamson better get consideration because he did everything he was asked to do. And when your team scores 49 touchdowns compared to 14 on the Big Sky season, there's a lot of quarters where he's just not being asked to throw the ball, right?
Yeah.
So no, this is an A, or if A pluses exist, they're pretty much an A plus, right?
Yeah, this is an A plus for me, right? Like this, aside from the South Dakota State loss, but like you said, in double overtime early in the season, everything else goes exactly the way that they hoped it would go. The only game that's really close in that instance is the one that we saw on Saturday, which I think everybody expected. That's how that game is. So yeah, it's an A plus.
I do want to address one thing. Rob Marr in the comments section. If Montana State goes before a playoff is done like Eck, that is bad. Hate that coaches are not loyal to top FCS schools. I do have to issue a correction there. Eck did not leave before the playoffs were done for Idaho. It leaked before the playoffs were done and then was confirmed almost instantly. But that reads more to me as they were kind of waiting it out. And I don't know. Hey, if Idaho would have beaten Montana State last year in that quarterfinal game, I don't know how long New Mexico is going to say, we'll let you hold off. But to be fair to Eck, the news leaked during the game. He did not officially announce or leave the team until after it was done. But it does suck to feel like, hey, this is always on the table. But that actually isn't that. This isn't new. Kurt Signetti left. Didn't Signetti leave James Madison, or was the guy before Signetti who left James Madison in the middle of a playoff run, which was that was more than 5-ish years ago. Whatever. It's this timeline isn't new. That FBS schools who pay way more don't care about the FCS. So if you're a coach, this is just the way the game is played. So maybe Vegan feels like he has a little bit more leverage being at a very good spot, but I don't know. I just think that's not gonna end where some coaches are gonna be clearly have their foot out the door during the playoffs because that's the timeline for the interviews, right? That's just when it happens.
Yeah, I mean those teams are not going to bowls traditionally, and if you're going to go somewhere, you're going up, and those deals are usually negotiated in advance, right? Like you're talking about the Eck deal. That's how the Jay Hill deal went, right? Like as soon as Weber State lost that game to Montana State in the second round of the playoffs, pretty much announced that's it, we're heading down to Provo, and it was clear that that was already in place before that game kicked off. So that's the nature of the business. If you're a good FCS coach and an FBS program is looking at you, they want to get started as quickly as possible because guys are hitting the portal. You need to get going as soon as you can because recruiting matters.
Yeah, and that's just going to be the reality of this. Like Crewhead76 says, Vegan will take half the MSU team to Corvallis in January and instantly be competitive in the pack light. I buy that. I mean, didn't Jason Eck just do that with Idaho plus some other Big Sky transfers in the Mountain West?
Yep.
I will say that is one of my takeaways for next year is, and I'm saying this from the Idaho end, is close close losses to like Mountain West schools now need to be interpreted as like a close loss to a good Big Sky team. And need to not really if you're a fan of a team who hangs with an FBS team, you need to not really round that up unless you're actually picking up the W, right? Because we just saw what New Mexico did in the Mountain West. We also saw Idaho State hang tough with two Mountain West teams. Saw Idaho hang tough with Pac-12 next year and Mountain West team. So anyway, not close to the most important point of the show. We've graded every single team, guys. Anyway, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Tubs the Club to become a member of the hashtag Only Tubs Discord. If you're a Vandal and you're not in there, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's the best place to talk Vandal sports online. If you don't want to jump in there for Vandal stuff, still support the show, support what we're doing here. Less than a cup of coffee a month. Unless you want to give more, we don't say no. But we're going to call it a season. This is I know it's Monday. This is the last Sunday show of the season covering the entire Big Sky. We'll be back at some level next year because I'm not in school next fall. I will unfortunately be a grown up with a real job though. So, we'll see how that goes. Colby, any last words?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that. So Parlay hit me up after the season ended on Saturday and was like, hey, do you want to do a picks show? So it sounds like we're going to be doing a picks show over on FCS Fans Nations Network like we did a couple of years ago. Lines might be a little bit tough because that's always kind of the way that it is with FCS. So we're going to be doing the first one tomorrow night. But then after that, it will be subsequently on Thursday night. So check us out over on the FCS Fans Nation YouTube channel tomorrow night, 7:30 Mountain. We're going to be talking about some of the matchups. We're going to be picking. We'll do our best to kind of like gauge the lines because FanDuel has been a little bit better about posting that stuff. And then also make sure to go check out I'll be doing at least one more Big Sky roundup for FCS Nation Radio, which I need to get over to them to wrap up the final season. Then we'll just kind of maybe follow these final 3 teams through the playoffs as they go. But make sure to check that out. And then also if you have a school, if you are a fan of a school who is doing the Alex's Lemonade Stand fundraiser this year, make sure to take those photos with lemons and post them. Donate money if you can. It's all going towards childhood cancer. So it's a good cause and it's an easy thing to get behind. So go check it out. Really appreciate you guys this season, Brian, hanging out, letting me chat with you guys on Tubs at the Club. The Tubs group's always great, and I really am going to go to the Kibbe Dome next year, I promise.
Well, we'll see you there. And until we have some nice, very nice words in the comment section. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Rob Marr, thanks to Joe Brian. Was not expecting this show. You both did a good job. Thank you. Legitimately, I missed doing the show, guys, just because I was just getting my ass kicked with school. And I just had to say no a couple weeks. I don't like missing the Sunday show, but hopefully things will be more stable, at least to schedule around. But anyway, that's next year, man. So we're going to sign off for the last time. Until then, I'm going to mine our background so I can get some to play us out. Till next time, guys. See you then, and go Vandals. This is producer Brian doing a terrible job of even finding what we're going to play us out with. So we're just going to call it good. See you guys Tuesday.